Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are watching us from. Welcome to this year's first edition of the Leadership Talk Show, the Leadership Time. We are glad you could join us. So, wherever you are watching us from, please drop your name and where you are watching us from the comment section because we really want to acknowledge you properly. If you just joined us, please drop your name and where you're watching us from in the comment section. I will welcome you the GLG way. Thank you for joining us. Leadership Time is brought to you by the Global Leadership Group. The Global Leadership Group is a leadership company that provides leadership consultancy, leadership training and management, leadership development, and leadership certification. And we aim to actually influence the world to build strong leaders, leaders with excellent behaviors and godly principles. So if you have joined us, you are at the right place at the right time. My name is Patricia Abnakisi. Tonight, we are discussing leadership at the global or at the organization level, leadership in corporate organizations. As a company for Global Leadership Group, we believe that leadership happens in most or most almost every sphere of our lives. So we look at leadership in the organization, we look at leadership among churches, we look at leadership within NGOs, and we look at leadership in families. But tonight, we are discussing leadership in corporate organization. And we are blessed tonight to have two of Ghana's best when it comes to leadership to share their experiences with us as to how we can journey on the leadership path and achieve excellence as leaders. So I will introduce our guests for tonight. Ladies first. So I'm starting with our lady, Winifred Cotin. She is the CEO of Eagle Innovation and a co-founder of Superfluid Labs, which is a data and AI company. Winifred Cotin is a seasoned technology business leader over the past 20 years. Yes, she has deployed her creative problem solving predisposition through the application of digital technology. We are in the technology world. So it means that she is the best person to have this conversation with. She started her career as a software engineer at Guarantee Trust Bank, Ghana. We don't have many females in that area. She's really a trailblazer. Okay. So she also she's a multiple award-winning bank for innovative banking solutions using technology, and later moved to Access Bank Ghana. During her stint in the banking, she occupied a variety of roles, including several leadership positions. So she has a wealth of experience when it comes to leadership. She founded Eagle Innovation in 2023 with a vision to accelerate growth and impact through technology enabled strategies, innovations, and impact for businesses and organizations seeking to seize opportunities in the digital economy. Ms. Kutin is a trained computer scientist and holds an MBA in finance and multiple certificates from a myriad of studies. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our guest, Winifred Cotin. Winifred, thank you so much for making the time to be here. I know how busy you are, and we are very grateful that you could make it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Patricia.
Awesome. So, our second guest is Dr. Joseph C. Arthur. He is a financial controller at Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited. He has 18 years of experience as a finance professional with experience in strategy formulation, financial control and reporting, performance management, corporate finance, and investor relations within Ghana's financial services industry. Prior to joining CBG in August 2018, he had worked with several Ghanaian banks, including Sovereign Bank, Agricultural Development Bank, Eco Bank, and Fidelity Bank at the senior management roles. He is a qualified accountant and a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants UK, Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, and he also holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Banking and Finance with first class honors. Awesome. He has capped his academic credentials with a doctorate in business administration from the Swiss Business School in Switzerland. He's passionate about mentoring young professionals, especially in the corporate sector, and is married and blessed with three children. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Joseph C.C. Atta. Dr. Atta, you are welcome. Okay, so I'm sure,
Hi, good evening, Patricia. Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's indeed an
Okay,
honor to be part of this evening's session.
thank you for making the time to be here. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please drop your name and where you are watching us from in the comment section so we can acknowledge you properly. We can acknowledge you properly. It's important that we do that. Right, so I will allow you, Winifred, first give us your opening remarks before we zoom into our discussion. And then after that, Doc will also us his opening remarks, please.
Hello to everyone watching us on the Global Leadership Group channel. We are very, very excited to be with you at this time. Leadership is a key driver of all successes, be it personal leadership or corporate leadership, organizational leadership. So I'm very excited to join Dr. Cece and Patricia as we have this conversation tonight, looking at various aspects of leadership in the corporate world. Excited and looking forward to a great session.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Doc, please, if you can hear me,
Hi,
kindly
Patricia.
give us your opening
Yes,
remarks.
yes, thank you. Are you still not able to see me?
Unfortunately, no. Chris,
Okay,
please, you can hear us. Do something about that for us. Thank you.
okay,
But you
that's
can
fine.
proceed.
Okay, so good evening, Patricia. Good evening, Winifred. Good evening, all viewers. And as I said, it's indeed a pleasure and an honor to be here to discuss this very important topic of leadership, especially within corporate organizations. For organizations, I always believe that there are two key assets that organizations have that unfortunately you don't see them on their books or on their balance sheets for that matter. I'm talking about people, I'm talking about reputation. So people is key. And if you want to grow people, if you want to develop people, leadership is very, very key. So corporate organizations, businesses is very important that we understand what leadership is all about, how leadership can actually help drive performance, how leadership can develop people and ultimately lead to the success of organizations. So I want to believe that there will be a very interesting discussion on the topic leadership, and I'm sure by the end of the day we'll have some key takeaways that we'll work with. So it's a pleasure once again to be on this program. Thank you very much, Patricia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you. Chris, if you can bring us in studio, I think it will be fine because I'm also not seeing uh, myself in the studio. It's good that we see. Okay, so let's start with the basics. I'll start with you, Winifred. The basics. What is your definition of leadership? And when it comes to leadership in corporate organization, how do you understand that? So your definition of what leadership is and what leadership in corporate organization is.
Great. So for
I like
me,
that smile. That smile means that a lot, we should expect a lot.
it's certainly, yes, certainly. So leadership to me means effectively managing a variety of resources to achieve a goal or set objectives within a stipulated time. And the resources you manage depends on the organization and then depends also on the goal to be achieved. One of the interesting things I liked about what doctor said was reputation and then people. So resources at any given time, for instance, if you want to take a look at reputation, it's a very powerful resource. Today, brands define uh, consumer engagement, brands define sales. So meaning that the reputation of an organization must be central to leadership. So when it comes to leading, it's for me the three key things is the resources, the the goal to be achieved, the resources you have, and then the stipulated time within which you are supposed to effectively manage these key drivers to ensure you achieve your goals. If it is left without putting in time as a factor to be considered, then everyone can say they are a leader because it can take them 20 years to achieve a goal which could have been a 5-day goal. So for me, time is also very critical as a key driver of good leadership attributes.
Wow, people, the goals, time, very important. And I like the point that you make. If time was not a factor, everybody could be a leader.
Yeah.
But what are you able to effectively manage within the stipulated term? I like that angle. Thank you so much for that. Doc, let's hear you. What is your own definition of leadership and as it relates to corporate organizations?
Okay, thank you, Patricia, and well said, Winifred. Leadership is broad, if you ask me.
Yeah.
It's a very broad concept, and it keeps evolving. Okay, it's also based on situations and what you need to exhibit as a leader. Um, Winifred has talked about the definition of leadership. I also want to touch on who a leader is. Okay, that explains basically what leadership is about. Like I said, it's quite an expansive topic and it has so many definitions. I mean, if you go through literature, you see so many definitions of literature, of, of leadership. And I want to believe that even in the near future to come, more definitions and more ideas about leadership would come up. But in all that, what you tend to see is that there are certain key elements or characteristics that define leadership. Okay, leadership is about having a vision. Okay, leadership is about inspiring people. Leadership is about having good communication. Leadership is about responsibility and accountability. Leadership is about motivating. Leadership is about showing empathy. Okay, basically, one definition that has actually stuck with me came from one of the leadership experts, John Maxwell. He made a point that leadership is all about influence. Okay, nothing more, nothing less. So, you realize that all the various characteristics or the attributes that I've put across all go to point to the fact that as a leader or leadership, what you are trying to do is to influence a group of people to achieve a common purpose. Okay, so leadership is all about influence, and it's about actually influencing the group of people under your watch or under your charge to achieve a common purpose. And again, there's recently I saw another definition that I felt was quite profound. It came from the former chief operating officer of Facebook. He said leadership is about improving the lives of those around you, and not just about that, but ensuring that that impact of you improving the lives of them is actually maintained even in your absence. And that's the hallmark of leadership. You should be able to leave an impact in the lives of the people around you, and even in your absence, that leadership or that impact must be felt amongst the people that you've left behind. So for me, that's the essence of leadership. It's all about influence. How do you influence a team to achieve a common purpose? That'll be my introduction when it comes to what leadership is all about.
Awesome. Thank you. Leadership is about influence. And like you rightly quoted John Maxwell, nothing more, nothing less. And I like that the second definition that you gave is about improving lives and leaving an impact. And I think that is why John Master also says something that a leaders you can judge a leader to have really been an excellent leader if he's able to develop other leaders after him, even to do more than he himself has done. So thank you so much. Please, if you've just joined us, this is the leadership talk show, the leadership time, brought to you by the Global Leadership Group. Doc, I'm putting you back. Help us, okay, because at the Global Leadership Group, we look at leadership at various spheres of life. We look at leadership in the corporate organization. We look at leadership in an NGO. We look at leadership within the church setting, and we look at leadership within the family setting. Is there a difference between leadership in corporate organization and leadership in other spheres of our lives, like the churches, the family, and NGOs?
Okay, thank you, Patricia. Yes, I would say there are marked differences between the kind of leadership that you see in a corporate organization and what you would find probably in other organizations, be it a faith based institution or the family. And I want to look at it from two perspectives. Okay. Um, the idea of the hierarchy and structure in a typical corporate organization marks a difference between what you see in a corporate organization and what leadership in other organizations would be. Again, the decision making process in corporate organizations is quite different from that of other organizations. The kind of stakeholders that you find in leadership in corporate organizations would also be different from other organizations. So typically, when you look at it, let's take for example decision making. A lot of corporate organizations, when they are taking decisions, they are largely data driven. Okay, they actually go through a process to come up with a decision. But if you take other institutions, other organizations, let's take a faith-based organization, for example, their approach to decision making is more of a collaborative approach where they share ideas and it's not necessarily data driven. If you want to stretch it, you could talk about it being sometimes it's influenced by faith in their decision making, whereas you wouldn't find that in corporate organizations. Again, if you look at the area of stakeholders, typically leadership in corporate organizations or in a corporate organization, what you tend to find is that they have sets of stakeholders that are totally different from what you see in families or what you see in churches. Okay. When you talk about stakeholders in corporate organizations, you're talking about shareholders, you're talking about directors, you're talking about regulators, you're talking about customers, you're talking about employees.
Mhm.
When you talk about, let's say, NGOs or not for profit organizations, you could be looking at um, donors, you could be looking at community for, let's say, um, other organizations, and you could also look at, let's say, church members in
Yeah.
faith-based institutions. So in that regard, in terms of structure, in terms of decision making, in terms of the stakeholders that are involved in corporate organization is quite different from what you find out in families or in religious-based institutions. Another perspective that you want to also look at will probably be the approach or what I call the leadership style that
Mhm.
you would see in corporate organizations as compared to um, other organizations. And I'll again permit me to use the churches as an example. So typically, what you find in churches, the kind of leadership style that you see in churches, would be more of a servant style leadership, where the leader actually puts the needs and then aspirations of his members at the forefront. His duty is to serve, okay, and he does that with his time, with his resources, and all that. Whereas in the military environment, for example, the dominant leadership style will probably be the autocratic or the authoritative kind of leadership because of the environment that they find themselves. In a typical corporate environment, it also depends on the situation at hand. You could have transformational leadership, you could have an affiliative kind of leadership, or in a stable environment, you could have that participative or democratic leadership style. So, in summary, yes, there are differences between corporate leadership and then leadership in other organizations. In the area of structure, in the area of hierarchy, in the area of decision making, I've talked about stakeholders, the kind of
Yeah.
stakeholders that each hold, and the fact that even the leadership styles between corporate organizations and that of other organizations bring about some differences in terms of leadership. So that's what I have to say about the differences between leadership in corporate organizations and other organizations. Patricia.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. This is very extensive. So then my follow-up question. If somebody is listening and is a leader but not in the corporate organization, let's say in a faith-based organization, what leadership approach will you recommend briefly so that they know how good leadership it should be or is in a faith-based organization based on what
Okay,
you've said?
so in the faith-based organization, leadership is all about service. Okay, it's all about service. So remember, I mentioned servanthood leadership. Okay, so in a typical faith-based organization, you are looking at servant leadership, where a lot of time and devotion is given to serve your members of the congregation. So that's what you typically see in a faith-based organization. There are different leadership styles and leadership approaches, and one of them is the servant-based, and that's really predominant in faith-based organizations. Patricia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Philip, for joining us. Thank you, Sylvester. We see you. Thank you, Roya Equia. We see you. Thank you all. Is it Michi Games? Okay, watching us from the US of A. Thank you. Please drop your name and where you are watching us from. In the course of the discussion, if you have a question, please drop it in the comment section. We'll pick it up and answer. We have Uchenna watching us from USA. Thank you for joining us. Right. Let me come to you, Winifred. Let's look at, because you said when you're talking about leadership, you mentioned that apart from the people and time, there's also a goal to achieve, how to effectively manage the resources to achieve a given goal. So what, in your experience, what do you think is the overarching goal of every leader in a corporate organization?
For me, I think there are two main things which would form the pillars of the goals of leadership. One is the vision of the organization. So, what vision is the organization striving to achieve, and how do you make that happen? So that's for me the very first thing, to be well versed in what the vision of the organization is. And this is because sometimes you find yourself in leadership position, but you are not the owner of a vision. So, for instance, if you happen to work, for instance, in a bank, whoever the founders of the bank could have defined a vision for the organization, and then you are a leader in management or is a CEO or a leader occupying any position, you are not the owner of that main vision of the organization. However, there are other sub-visions you can define to ensure the main vision is achieved. So understanding the vision of the organization is very, very key. And then ensuring that everything else you do is aligned to achieving that vision makes it as the most important attribute of a good leader. The second one is ensuring you also understand the values of the organization. So every organization is run by a set of philosophies or values, and these philosophies are philosophies they have regarding all stakeholders of the organization. So the philosophies regarding shareholders, if it is a for-profit organization or founders, the philosophies regarding customers or consumers or users of their services, the people they serve. Every organization is established to serve the market, to serve consumers, to serve customers, or to serve a body. So, for instance, in faith based organizations, the service is to members of a church. If you take a church as an instance, if you take a school, the service is to students. If you take a hospital, the service is to patients. So, what are the values defined to serve the main beneficiaries of the organization? Then the third angle is what are the values regarding employees or team members or the people who run the organization together with you as a leader? What are the values you have? So, for instance, organizations have a variety of values. Some create an environment that enriches the lives of everyone who comes in there to work. Some create environments that drive the growth, professional growth of members of the organization who are employed. So, whatever the values defined by the organization to drive the employees or the other stakeholders, you need to be very aware of that. And then in some environments, you may find that you also have regulatory influence or you are working within a regulated institution. So what what is the values you have to ensure you are compliant to regulatory directives as an organization? And to that end, the attributes of a good leader is the leader who is able to understand the vision and understand the values of the organizations as it relates to these four critical areas I have mentioned. It is based on these that you define at any given time your leadership strategies, your actions as a leader, your goals, because everything you do must be centered. It cannot be haphazard as a leader. You cannot come in and say, okay, for instance, you are practicing an autocratic leadership style in an organization where the organization is very people centered and is into enriching and developing people. So, if you are looking at enriching and developing people, being autocratic is not a style that would work in that environment. But if they have it is a very goal driven or mission driven organization, an organization which is focused on results because it is very, very critical. For instance, in a hospital, the hospital is not, I may be wrong, but the goal of a hospital is to heal people who are unwell. The goal is not to particularly nurture talent of employees. You see, so their biggest objective is to ensure that people who come to the hospital are well. So, how do you ensure that your leadership styles, attributes, and actions are directed towards these main goals? And I think for me, that is one of the critical things every leader or anyone who has the opportunity to step into leadership roles must be sure you are aware of what the organization stands for and align yourself to the values of the organization. And then you now develop your attributes as a leader, the effective attributes you need to ensure you bring up to the environment based on the value so that everything is aligned, and it also makes it very easy for you to influence your organization and your teams, because at the end of the day everything is centered around a common objective, around a common vision, around a common culture, and you're able to bring out the best in people because you are all aiming to achieve a specific goal.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. So, then this comes to mind. You know, there are some leaders, they know the vision, and they are the only people who know the vision, and it's like it's in their chest, and then they give it out in bits, in pieces, to show the authority. What do you have to say about that? Because it's important for you to know the vision, but is it just you, or it has to also cascade down to your team members? Briefly.
I think it definitely has to cascade down to your team members, and it cannot do so if you keep all that information. So, communication is one of the key drivers of good leadership. So, if you are keeping the entire vision to your chest, or you haven't been able to get the vision um, well acclimatized in the heads of your team or other members of the organization, certainly you will struggle as a leader because you struggle with alignment where people have different visions. When we are all charting the path or the course to go to point A, people are looking at going to point I. Because they are not aligned on the vision. And I think holding a vision to your chest or holding a goal to keeping it as a secret doesn't help because your goal is to influence people to work with you to get to the destination you seek. So if you don't provide enough information and timely, consistent information, that goal will not be achieved. And working with people will become a little more difficult for you as a leader.
Right. So please, if you're a leader, and you see, leadership is not about position, it's not about title. So at whatever level of leadership you are a leader in your family, you're a leader in your church, you're a leader in the organization, you need to get the vision to the people. First of all, understanding the vision, and then making sure that the people, the team members you are leading, also understand the vision. Let them know where you are going. Don't say just follow me. You follow me. Where are we going? You say follow me. Let them know where they are going, so that they can follow you, like Winifred is saying. Then, because really managing people itself is challenging. So if you don't make it easy on yourself, you're going to struggle. And that is why having this conversation is very, very important. Understand the vision. Not only that, help your team to also understand and appreciate the vision and the values of the organization, and also the value proposition. If somebody works for you or within the organization, what should the person expect? Career development, like Vinny first said, or is it that you get more money? So for us, come work with us, money should not be a problem. Or is it that you want people to feel free and have a very conducive work environment, which should be the case? So thank you. I don't know, Doc, do you want to add anything to this?
Um, Thank you, Patricia, and then great submission from Winifred. I think she's largely touched on the key points that I wanted to talk about. But I think another dimension that we can look at is in terms of the overarching goal. I believe that as a leader, um, your focus is on the people, okay, and growth and development should be the highest calling of every leader. Okay, that you empower the team. I always say that a leader should be able to create more leaders than just to maintain followers. Okay, and leadership should not end with your tenure. Once you are off the scene, the team should be able to rise up and take up the mantle.
Mm.
So for me, in addition to all that has been said by Winifred, I think leadership, the highest calling of leadership is about growth and development of the people in your charge. And it's about making sure that you are creating more leaders and not just maintaining followers. So that'll be a bit that I would want to add to it, Patricia.
Thank you very much. So somebody encounters you as a leader, the person should be better. The person should be better than he first encountered you, growing people and developing more people. Thank you very, very much. Steve says great discussion. Thank you, Steve. Richard says great submissions. Thank you, Richard. Um, Arthur Joseph says, enjoying the presentations. Thank you. Sylvester says, one must serve to lead. That is servant leadership. So again, Doc, you mentioned that they should get inspiration. We should be able to inspire people, develop people, and all that. So, from your experience, how can corporate leaders actually inspire the team members and get them to achieve a common goal? Because sometimes you hear leaders saying, and this is where we want to achieve, but I'm not getting the people to achieve what is supposed to be achieved. What advice would you have for this leader? How can leaders inspire their team members to rally around and achieve the common goal?
Okay, thank you, Patricia. And I would actually take off from where Winifred ended in, in talking about the vision. I think every leader must have a vision and must share the vision. And how do you share the vision? You communicate effectively. Okay, like we had already said, if the people that you are leading do not understand the vision or where you are going, they will not be able to follow you. So, as a leader, you need to actually have a vision and share that vision, and in a way that the people understand and will follow you. That is the first to actually lead into the inspiration and the motivation. But it doesn't only end there. You need to actually provide some supportive actions. Okay, as a leader, once you set a vision and you communicate that vision, first of all, you must lead by example. It's not about showing the way, but then you don't go that path. You need to lead by example. Okay? You need to empower the team. One of the tools that actually motivates or inspires the team is empowering. Okay, giving them decision-making autonomy, resource allocation is provided to them for them to actually enhance their creativity, okay, and then also build upon their motivation. Okay, you need to also recognize and then reward performance. You need to celebrate milestones. Okay, you need to give that regular feedback for them to actually appreciate that. Okay, this is where I'm getting to. Okay, you also need to actually challenge them sometimes, not overstretch them, but challenge them. Sometimes a way to motivate them is to set targets that are stretching but achievable at the same time. Once you're able to do that, it actually also motivates them. You realize that I'm not talking about financial rewards because that is a separate conversation. But in terms of intrinsic motivation and how to inspire the team, these are some of the things. You need to also look at training and development. It's very, very important. Okay, continuous training, continuous development. Once there's a vision, once it's well crafted and communicated, as a leader, once you're able to lead by example, once you're able to recognize and reward performance, once you're able to celebrate milestones, once you're able to give regular feedback, once you set targets for them to achieve, and once give them continuous and regular training, I believe that these things go in a long way to actually inspire and motivate the team beyond financial rewards.
Wow. Thank you very much indeed. One thing I've realized with most leaders is that, okay, I assigned a task, I gave the person room to operate, and the result I got wasn't what I was expecting. And because of that, I've resolved. If I give you a task, I'll be on your neck, micromanage you to make sure that I achieve the result. How does that play out in the corporate setting, Winifred? And
Uh,
what advice will you give such a leader?
I think that's unfortunately happens. Sometimes there are different reasons for that. Sometimes the capacity of the person to perform is low. So then you may need to look at capacity building and empowering people to be able to deliver on the set tasks. Sometimes so there's lack of clarity. So sometimes assignments are given or tasks is supposed to be performed, but then the team members or member did not understand what was meant to be achieved. One of the things I have found to be helpful is asking people to repeat what they heard or to write out what they heard. so that before they go very deep and then bring up what results which are not as expected, you know you are aligned on that. So sometimes it's capacity problems, so you need to empower people some more. Sometimes so you realize that some people are struggling because they don't have the strengths or the abilities or skills to deliver on that. However, they may have some other strengths that can be reassigned to other areas. So they may be working in a place which is not a place of strength for them. Okay, so for instance, in organizations, I've had this experience before where we were all supposed to become salespeople. Okay, but there was no capacity building on sales. Typically, depending on where your backgrounds are, you may not have strength in sales. So, in this case, capacity building for sales is what is required. But that wasn't done. However, everyone was expected to be able to deliver some targets on sales, irrespective of your place of where your functional area. And that became a sort of a nightmare for some people because they are not able to achieve these sales targets, which are consistently being monitored. And it became such a big problem that some people found had to resign from the organization. Okay, so I think that effective capacity building is one of the key ways to address these challenges so that people can perform in the roles they are given. And then sometimes so you find that some people need to be, we are all different. People have different ways of learning and nurturing. So nurturing talent would differ from person to person. Okay, and sometimes you may need to find out what would work for this specific person. So they may need to be encouraged differently to be able to deliver the kind of results. Or in light of the fact that you may not have time and resources to be spending on that, you can just reassign people to their places of strength and to the places where they have training and skill sets which can be readily utilized by the organization so that we can ensure we are achieving our goals and objectives on time. And then people are also happy and the environment doesn't become toxic for them where they are scared to come to work because they know or they feel humiliated because they are not able to perform. So these are my contributions to that.
Thank you very much. There are a couple of questions that'll come to that, but I like the points that you make. Leaders must really take time to understand their team members. Most of the time, we are focused on getting results, getting results, getting results, forgetting that the people that will give us the results, we need to really get to know them. Like Winifred said, their strengths and place them in their places of strength because nobody is stupid. Excuse me. Everybody has their own unique strength and abilities. But if you place them in a place where they are not good or it's not their strength zone, it's going to create problems for them. So please, as a leader, please take time to understand your team members, understand their strength, understand their weaknesses, understand what motivates them. There are some people you can give it to them in front of the people, they are okay, it gives them motivation. There are other people, if you say any negative word about them in front of the team members, they are going to coil back and that will be the end of them. So let's understand our team members so that we know how to relate with them at the individual level so that you can collectively work to achieve your goal. Thank you so much, Winifred. There's a question from Victor. Please, how does servant leadership play out from the leader? I don't know whether this question is understood. Please, how does servant leadership play out from the leader? I don't know who would want to pick this, Doc, whether maybe
Okay.
we.
Okay. So, as I indicated earlier, servants leadership is another kind of it's a leadership style where in that environment the leader actually is there or exists to serve the needs of the team. Okay. I'm tempted to always say church members because basically you tend to have this leadership style dominating amongst leaders within religious organizations. Okay, it's about putting the needs of the members ahead of your needs. Okay, it's about availing your time, your resources, and everything that you have for your team or for the members of your organization. So it is a style of leadership that you can adopt as a leader depending on the situation at hand. I always say that leadership is an art. Okay, depending on the situation at hand, there is a kind of leadership style that you can adopt. Okay, so in a certain environment, especially in the religious organizations, you see that dominating a lot, and it has its own positives and it has its own negatives. But I think it's very well placed in the area of religious organizations, and you tend to see them actually exhibiting that a lot. I don't know whether I've actually done justice to the question from Victor.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know whether Winifred, you have anything to add?
I think I'm not very clear on what the
On
question
the
is, whether he's asking about the different types of leadership or whether servants leadership must be always brought up. But I would
or how
say,
or
sorry,
how can leaders be servant leaders? That is the input I'm getting based on and the explanation that Logan.
okay, okay. So I think given
So
that
how can a
servant
leader demonstrate servant leader?
okay, so given that the whole idea of servant leadership is around empathy for the people you lead, it's really about ensuring that you are able to take care of the needs of the people you serve, and in that way you gain leadership over them. So I think like doctor said, depending on the environment or the situation, that's a very great leadership style that can be used to gain influence over the people you serve. Sometimes people want to know that they matter to you as a leader. And when people realize that they really matter to you, you care about them, not just your results, but you also care about them as a person in the first place before as a functional role they play. It's kind of unlocks a lot of deep connection between the leader and then the followers. So I think that's also one of the key things when it comes to looking at influence. So if you want to influence people, one of the positive ways you can do so is through servitude, where you really care about the well-being of your team members to ensure that they are able to live well as a person and then perform well on the role or the assignments you've given them.
Awesome. I mean, let them know that you care. Until they know that you care, they won't care about your results, really. It will just be a chore for them. But if they know that you care, then they will really, really, really care about the results as well. Thank you so much for that. Okay, let me take a few comments. Before I come to the question, Sylvester says a leader must ensure continuity and change, and that's true. Leave a legacy. Justina says very insightful. Thank you, Justina. Morrison says good. Gertrude, good presentation. Thank you, Gertrude. Okay, so we have a question. Oh, if you can project the question, there are some leaders, question from Russell, I hope I got it right. There are some leaders serving leadership roles on diverse management boards in different institutions, i.e., churches, banks, schools, etc. What one thing makes these leaders universal players? Okay. Winifred, can you pick that up? Then Doc will add his input as
Yes,
well.
yes. I think one of my observations about leadership is I've learned it from observing children. I've learned it from observing children. When you have the privilege of interacting with a lot of children, at a certain stage in your life, you quickly identify universal leadership traits exhibited by some children even when they haven't been trained. Okay, so they are very they have some they have abilities that are very unique, which you would normally see in a leader who has a depth of experience. And one of the things I've noticed is they are really good with influencing people to do good things. They also have a very their desire for excellence at all given times and for things being done right is always seen in everything they do. So in everything they do, they desire to ensure that it's done right, it's done excellently. They also desire to influence people into good behavior, and then they are also keen to learn and to ensure that they are always gaining knowledge so that they can be more effective in their work. And when you mention the various places of leadership, so you find someone sitting on several boards with very unique organizations, a church, a school, a bank, you realize that what's the vision of all these organizations vary, but what matters is that they are achieving visions, and then they are ensuring that they are able to work well amidst changing environments. That revolves around problem solving, being dynamic, being able to work well with people, bring out the best in people, making judiciously using resources. And some of these are, I'll call them common denominators you'd find among leaders who are able to wear multiple hats across different places of influence. And I think these are all skills, because I have observed them even in children. I would say that these are skills that we can all develop so that irrespective of the opportunities that come for leadership to be exhibited, we would be successful at them.
Wow, thank you very much. Doc, you want to add anything? I like the fact that they have knowledge. You see, and that is why if you're on a board, the fact that you have the ability to influence people is key, but also knowledge is very important. And I like that you have emphasized knowledge apart from the vision as well. Thank you. Doc, anything you want to add before we move on? Okay. Right. If not, let me read some comments. Russell says, great program. I'm loving it. Thank you. Emily says, good presentation. Thank you. Joachim says, shalom to you all. Shalom. Data Link site says, great program. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So, Winifred, I'm sorry, Doc will come in, but let me ask this question. You mentioned some of the key qualities that leaders should generally have. From your experience, what are the key qualities that you have demonstrated that have really helped you in your leadership journey? And how can young leaders or even leaders at various levels develop such qualities?
I think for me, most of my work has been around transformation and change management because of the nature of my work. So I'm into technology innovations, into digital transformation. So a lot of the time, I'm working to change processes, to change behavior, to change attitude, to adapt new technologies. And what I have found to work very well for me in several scenarios has been around ensuring people are knowledgeable, building capacity of people, and creating an environment where people are able to embrace changes that occur within the environments they work so that they can easily adapt and not be antagonistic to my leadership when it comes to transformation and change. And sometimes I found that different methods, different strategies have to be used. So sometimes we've had to use a lot of knowledge, a lot of capacity building is done where the people are empowered, and then a lot of information is given to demystify, to take away fear. One of the difficulties when you're a leader is when people are naturally afraid of change or afraid of an environment. It's very difficult to get cooperation when people are not comfortable. So one of the things I have found to be effective in my leadership journey has been ensuring that people are comfortable by providing sufficient information, by providing a lot of resources and capacity building, and then also trying to reward good behavior. Okay, when you happen to work around the areas I specify, which is around change and transformation, you want to be able to motivate people to go the new route with you. So motivating good behavior, creating champions, and helping people follow along when it comes to change has been, I think, one of the key things which has really helped me. And I'm very much into knowledge, because when people are aware of why they must do certain things or why they have to behave in a particular way, it makes influencing them as a leader quite easy, compared to when the knowledge is not there and you are just expecting compliance. That is a little more difficult in a normal corporate organization.
Thank you very much. These are very, very insightful comments, discussions. Okay, so empower people, and you cannot really end empowering people because knowledge abounds and it changes in your field. For example, I would say even more than the speed of light, right? Because
Very much
today we
so.
are used to one technology, the next time another one, and then another one. So if you don't keep developing your people, building their capacity, and coming from a place of human resource management, you cannot say that this person is not performing when you have not, first of all, given them the tools and the skills they need to perform well. So until you, that is why when you are managing performance, there's something we call performance improvement plan. What it means is that you have identified that this person is not developing or providing the results as you would wish. What must I do to get the results? Capacity building, training? Is it coaching? Is it sometimes just because the person is not at the right position or doing the right thing that he's supposed to do? So let's be mindful as leaders. Developing people, empowering them, building their capacity is very important. Thank you for sharing that with us. Doc, what has been very, very helpful to you as a leader on your leadership journey because you have come far? What qualities have helped you perform well as a leader? And what advice will you give to a young leader starting their leadership journey?
Okay, thank you very much, Patricia. Three things. I think first of all, one of the virtues of a good leader, I think we've not touched about it, but it's about humility. And what do I mean by humility? Basically, we are saying that as a leader, you need to appreciate or acknowledge that you don't know it all. Okay, you need to actually acknowledge your weakness and actually tap into the strength of your team. Okay, I always say that in leadership, you don't just engage in with people who are actually less knowledgeable than you. You need to actually look out for people who are actually more knowledgeable than you and actually guide them to achieve the results. So humility is key. Okay, once as a leader you are humble, you're able to get the team on your side because they actually also understand that you acknowledge your weakness and you are ready to work with the team to achieve as a team organizational success. Another key thing is about adaptability. And indeed, I wanted to even touch on the earlier question that in terms of the one unique characteristic that cuts across leaders who find themselves in churches, in other organizations, in boards, and all that. One key thing is about adaptability. And when it comes to adaptability, that's when you have so many leadership styles available to you. But depending on what needs to be done, you quickly tune into the appropriate leadership style and work with it. Okay, so there have been instances where there are crises. Okay, there are instances where there's huge transformation that needs to go on. Okay, I am with Consolidated Bank, and 5 years ago we went through a major transformation where about seven banks were put together as one. Seven different cultures, seven different work ethics. They are in your team that you need to manage. How do you adapt to each individual to ensure that the team is quite cohesive to achieve the goals of the department? So it's very important that as a team, as a leader, you are very much adaptable to the situation and even to the individual that you are leading. Again, the last bit which I need to talk about is about empowerment, which we've already talked about. Okay, once you empower, once you delegate, it fosters team spirit. It empowers the team. They believe that, okay, they are in it together with you. Okay. So empowerment is a way of building up the team, developing the team as well. And once you do that, as a leader, you're able to aspire to other higher responsibilities and achieve other greater responsibilities. You're more strategic. You move from being just a manager to becoming an actual leader by empowering the people and then giving them that room to make decisions, that room to actually contribute to the success of what you've set out to do. So, three things for me about being humble, it's about empowering the team, and it's about being adaptable.
Wow, wow, wow. How time flies when you're having fun so soon, right? Thank you so much for that. Be human, humility. If you're a leader, you are not a super man or woman. Okay. So sometimes we don't show your our vulnerability as leaders. And the team members expect so much from us. And sometimes if you are vulnerable and you see they know that you're also human, it helps. So I like that point. And being adaptable and empowerment, we cannot overemphasize that. Thank you very much. Our time is up. There's one question we will answer, and then Doc and Winifred, you give us your final words. I hope to get you back because there are a lot of questions I wanted to ask you. I've not been able to do that. So I would definitely get you back. So let's answer this question from Steve. Steve says, are there some temperamental traits, i.e., choleric, melancholy, phlegmatic, sanguine, that are not likely to exhibit effective leadership skills? If yes, why? If no, why not? Okay. We will take that. Okay, Winifred first, and then Doc, you add on.
What I would say is that there are predispositions we have,
Yeah.
which would be an advantage or disadvantage depending on the leadership situation one finds himself or herself in. Okay, so I wouldn't want to go into the temperament as I am not an expert in that, but the temperaments are basically strengths and weaknesses of personalities. And these strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses are they help us achieve various things. So there's not a particularly bad strength or a terrible weakness or whatever, because every strength is actually a weakness and every weakness is actually also a strength. So depending on what the leadership needs are, for instance, a trait someone has can be an advantage or maybe a disadvantage for which the person must work around it. So for instance, if you are not very much result oriented per your temperament type or your personality, it means when you are made a leader for to achieve a specific goal, you need to be mindful of that so that you can ensure that you are achieving your results. Assuming your people skills are weak, those are your strengths do not particularly go around people working well with people, or you don't have that natural ability to engage effectively with people. It means that you only have to improve upon that. And these things are actually things we learn every day. We learn how to work well with people. But no strength in particular is an advantage or a disadvantage. Depending on the situation, sometimes you need to combine all sorts of strengths and abilities to achieve results. And it's good to know yourself. I always say that I wish we were taught things around personalities and abilities very early in our educational journey,
Yeah.
so that by the time you are even a teenager, you know where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are, so that you can always improve upon that, or you can even ensure that you do things which are very much aligned. And wherever you find that this is not a place of strength, you can quickly build new skills in that capacity, because every human being can learn and every human being has a will. So there's no limitations to what we can actually do per our natural predispositions.
Thank you very much, Doc. I don't know whether you want to add anything to what Winifred has said.
Maybe just to say that yes, your personality traits would to some extent have a bit of influence, especially on the leadership style that you adopt. And indeed, all leaders would have a dominant leadership style naturally that they exhibit. But it goes beyond that because, like I said, you need to be adaptable. So, for example, somebody who is a choleric, it's typically a choleric person, somebody who is bad tempered, grumpy, a bit grouchy as well. Okay, and such people they tend to be a bit autocratic. Okay, it may augur well for them in some instances, but definitely as a leader, like I said, one key characteristic or one good quality that you need to exhibit is about you being adaptable. You cannot be autocratic in all your dealings or in all your engagements. Okay, so like Winifred said, once you understand your personality and you know how that influences the kind of leadership you exhibit, you are careful to actually manage that and then look at other leadership styles that will complement what you have already as a dominant leadership style to actually lead the team. So yes, it's to some extent influences the kind of leadership that you exhibit, but then as a good leader, you need to be very adaptable and learn other styles that will complement your dominant leadership style.
Thank you very much. Our time is up, but there's one question I'll ask, then whoever answers it first, you add your final words, and then we call it a night. I know I have extended your time a bit. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so Ben is asking, as a leader, how do you handle subordinates who undermine the work you do simply because they do not like you? As a leader, how do you handle subordinates who undermine the work you do simply because they do not like you as a person? Winifred, you want to take that and then add your final words, then we come to Doc, please.
Okay. I think managing people is a very difficult activity that must be learned.
Mhm.
So, as a leader, learning
Yeah,
how to work well with people is very key to achieving success. So, if you have, let's say, difficult team member who is making your role or your effectiveness difficult, I think you need to understand your position of power. Okay, because when you are a leader, sometimes you may need to let people understand you have been entrusted with power. Okay, so being entrusted with power means you have power to achieve goals, to lead people, to work well with people, and not to encourage bad behavior. Okay, because if you as a leader cannot ensure that bad behavior is not does not continue to exist within your team, then it will become very difficult, because bad behavior spreads. Okay,
yeah,
something that may start out very small can very quickly escalate into a very difficult situation for you. So effectively managing bad behavior when it starts would be very key. So for an instance like this, you may want to do your investigation to understand what it is, okay, that is causing this. So is this that the person has a problem with you because you did something to the person in the past? Is it that the person feels unfairly treated because they think they should be those occupying the role, and then the role was given to you? Is it that they want an opportunity to outshine you so that they now have access to that? You may want to do investigations to dig deeper to understand what's the motivation for that. And when you understand these things, you can better be able to manage it. It may be a personal issue, and speaking with the person one on one may help. You may need to bring in a third party to engage, or you may just need to use your powers as a leader more effectively to ensure that those things are not carried out. Because at the end of the day, you have both keys in your hands, both the keys of power and then the keys of influence, to ensure that you are effective as a leader. And then I think my final
Final words. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so my final words is that I think leadership, everybody has an opportunity to practice leadership and build leadership skills on a daily basis. And once you continue to exist, you will definitely get to, as a professional, you get to the position of power within an organization. So it's a good opportunity that is being offered on this forum, and I believe that all the things that we have shared should help all of us to continue to learn and improve our leadership journeys. And leadership involves consistent learning and continuous learning and practice. So we all need to ensure that whatever we learn, we practice, and we practice it more effectively. Especially now, we have a lot of changing environments. So being able to lead yourself as a person is even very key. How do you adapt to changes that go on within the organization so that you can be given and trusted more power or more responsibilities? So these are all things we need to keep in mind as professionals, and then we should just continue learning to become more effective in our leadership journeys.
Thank you very much indeed. Indeed. Leaders are learners, right? So you can't be a leader and not learn. And that is why this opportunity is there for all of us. Leadership is a skill that can be learned. Sometimes you get a debate, are leaders born or made and all that? I mean, somebody may be naturally predisposed to be as to exhibit some kind of leadership qualities, but leadership is a skill that we can all learn and improve on. And that is what this conversation is all about. Thank you very much, Winifred. Doc, if you want to add anything, and then you give us your final words as well.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. And I think much has been said once again by Winifred. Um, Undermining at work is something that you'd want to nip in the bud as quickly as possible, because it's not a good behavior that we would want it to spread to other team members. It's very important that you quickly understand. It would have been good to actually engage to know what exactly brought them to that point. But be it as it may, it is something that, like Winifred said, you hold the key of influence and you hold the key of power. I think as a leader, you need to be very assertive. Okay. In as much as you are empathetic, you also need to be assertive and draw the line when it has to be drawn. Okay. And it shouldn't, once as a leader, you are knowledgeable, I don't think some of these things would also come up. Sometimes the challenge is they feel like Winifred said, probably they should have been in that position in which you occupy, or some way, somehow, you are in that position. But that's what it is. You are in that position. And so I think as a leader, to ensure that that does not infiltrate to other team members, you actually engage just to understand what the issues are. But finally, you hold the key. And I think as a leader, you need to be assertive in dealing with some of these things to draw the line and be firm about it. So, in terms of my closing remarks, I want to say that leadership is a journey. It's continuous learning. It's never a destination. It's always about growing every day and then helping others to grow with you. And again, I've also come to realize that people don't leave bad jobs. They leave because of bad leaders. They leave because of poor management. And we need to be mindful of that. Okay. The function of leaders, again, I want to reiterate it, is to produce more leaders, not more followers. And then lastly, when we talk about leadership, leadership is not about you. It's about the people under your care. Okay, so the greatest leader I would say is not the one who does the greatest things. It's actually the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. So that will be my closing remarks um, for tonight. Thank you very much for having me, Patricia.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. In fact, thank you so much for the knowledge, for the information, for the experiences, for the insights that you have shared with us. We are very, very grateful. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. And thank you, everyone, for joining us, for making this a great program. In God We Trust says, great show indeed. Abraham says, great indeed. Thank you so much for making the time. So, this has been the Leadership Talk brought to you by the Global Leadership Group. The Global Leadership Group is a leadership company. We are into leadership development, capacity building, leadership consultancy, and leadership certification. So watch out for our leadership training programs coming to you very soon. Short, competency based training programs that will help you improve on your leadership skills. Leadership is a journey, and like Doc said, it's also continuous learning and improvement. And we'll do that by investing in your development. Sometimes you are in an organization and you're doing very well, and you are promoted without any training. So prepare yourself so that when you demonstrate competency on the job, say that you are promoted, then you are ready to take up the leadership role. So watch out for our leadership programs, training programs on all our social media handles. And please follow our social media handles, Global Leadership Group Limited. Follow us, like, share, and invite your friends to also enjoy. This video will be available on all our social media platforms. Please go back and take a listen again and improve on your leadership skills. Thank you very much. Ose, a very insightful discussion. Thank you, Victor. Wow, Francis, a very insightful session. Thank you so much, Victor. Great presentation and insight. Thanks, Doctor and Winifred and Patricia, and thank you all for joining us. So I will see you again, God willing, next month when we bring to you another talk show, the Leadership Time. Thank you, Doc, and thank you, Winifred. Like I said, please, I'll bring you back because I didn't exhaust all my questions. Thank you, and do have a great, great week ahead. Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye. The pleasure
Yes,
has been
bye.
mine.
Thanks for having us. Bye bye.